Welcome to I Said What I Said, a sports podcast giving you opinions not heard anywhere else. I'm your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry. Tyson, we're back in the saddle today. It was a quick conference finals. Let's just put it that way. So we're previewing the NBA finals. We had some stuff going on. You know, the summer, just the dog days of summer. This is really the last big thing on the calendar. We got baseball kicking around, and then we're previewing football, but this is like the last thing big on our calendar before we move into the football season. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, it's baseball and horse racing, essentially, for the rest of the summer. If you're into horse racing, that's great. If you're not, that's also great. We're not going to blame you for missing out on races, but those are like the two things really going on. It's years like this that I miss the Olympics, man.
Well, the Olympics are this summer.
What?
Paris, man.
I was trying to tee you up a little bit. I don't know if I did it well.
And the Euros, I believe.
I don't know what that is, but I do know what the Olympics are.
I think that's it. Euros International Soccer. I think it's 2024. Yeah, it is. June 14th to July 14th. There we go. We got another thing to get Tyson into.
Yeah, I'm probably good on that, but I will be watching the Olympics, and then we got hockey too. Hockey will last the exact pretty much same amount of time as the NBA, which is always a little bit unfortunate. But Brad, we got like the most toxic discourse in all of sports right now in the WNBA, so maybe that's something we can really politicize and kind of dive in on. See if we can just divide people, because that's what sports are about.
Yeah, of course. That's really what we wanted coming into the WNBA season when they finally had momentum, is getting all political and racial. Nothing says fun sports stuff like politics and race.
It's so funny. You guys are nailing it over there.
All right, so we're going to preview the NBA Finals. As it says, we wanted to tee up a little bit of what we got going on. We're going to do a little bit of diving into the series like we've done in the past. So we're going to talk about stuff that's on the court, how we got here. Kristaps Porzingis expected to be back. He's really the biggest piece here that we view in this series. Then we'll go into what we expect to see on the court. Then we're going to close out with some Money Makin Time, go through some series-long bets, Game 1 picks. And then we're expecting to be back here after Game 2, Game 4, Game 6, if it goes that far, or if it ends before, then we'll give you our analysis on that. So just teeing you up of what we expect here. Tyson, before we dive into how we got here, though, what do you think about this matchup? It feels like these are the two best teams playing at the best time. So I'm actually super excited for this game and the series to start.
No, it's awesome. Like, these are probably the two best duos in the NBA. If you listen to the Gundy stand right now on the ESPN broadcast, saying that Kyrie and Luka are the best scoring backcourt in the history of the NBA, which is wild to me, but he knows more about basketball than I do, so I'm going to defer there, I guess. And then can the Jays finally get it done? Jason and Jalen, because that's kind of the fun part about the NBA, Brad, is like the games kind of feel like the appetizer, and then the drama and things like that come in the offseason. That's what most NBA fans are tuning in for, and it's going to be pretty bad if Boston can't get over the hump. But Boston's been the best team in the league all year, and I think that Dallas might be a surprise to some. I mean, honestly, I think that like Oklahoma City not being here shouldn't be a shock to you or anybody else. I know they were the 1 seed. Minnesota's very young, and Dallas just smacked them off the court to get here. So I think that Dallas was a likely team to emerge from the West. It feels kind of still a little bit weird to not have, we're not even talking about them beating Denver, right, to get here. And so that is maybe where people can push back to the two best teams in the league thing. But hey, you play who's in front of you. And Dallas has beaten the shit out of everybody that's walked in front of them. And this is, it's not going to be old school basketball, but if you like watching, with 3 or 4 7-footers on the court at any given time, this is for you. These teams are huge, dude.
Yeah, and I'm trying to pull something up here, but I texted you. It's bad. I found it to my brother, and I'm trying to see the one I sent to you. But literally, in February 22nd, I texted and said, there you go, to you. Dude, the Mavs might win the title. They're huge now after the trade deadline. So I've been monitoring for a little bit, and I just kept being like,
what did I say?
You said, I'll kill myself. So a little non-political correct there from Tyson. But as a Suns fan, that's kind of what you expect. But, this is going back. So this has been on our radar, and not necessarily something that we foresaw coming. But I mean, it was just kind of a passing thing that I said. And like Tyson said, these teams are huge. Like the Mavs went out and added size, like PJ Washington on the wing, getting Daniel Gafford to play a big role, and Derek Lively, like honestly playing really to his, I mean, higher than the potential that people saw in his rookie season. I mean, he's surprised that he's playing this well. Like everybody was surprised he's been playing this well, and it's been a seamless transition for him. Now, he hasn't had to do a whole lot, right? He rebounds, he blocks shots, he rim runs, and that makes your life a whole lot easier, especially when you have Luka and Kyrie out on the floor. But after they made those trades, this team was completely different. Like, they're number one in interior defense. They've been able to completely stifle guards who go to the rim, and what we saw them do to really anybody else on the interior that they faced through the playoffs. So I think any preconceived notion that we had about the Mavs early, you can throw it out the window. Like, they're playing their best basketball right now. Jason Kidd's done a great job at adjusting. And on the other side, I know, it's shocking for people. People don't want to hear that. No, but on the other side, I agree with you, man. Like, it's going to get ugly if Tatum and Jaylen Brown can't close this thing out, because they've been the best team all year.
Again.
All season long. And it feels like this is a time, and I got a couple things that we'll dive into as we get into the preview itself, but I mean, I can't wait for this one.
I probably should have went back through and read what I said back to you. I might have been able to say that one. Yeah, that was.
Well, you actually said I'll KMS, but I kind of outed you on the abbreviation. It could be anything, so I outed you. That was my bad. Tyson, let's talk about how we got here, though. You know, because we've had different paths, right? Dallas Mavericks go through the Clippers, then they go through the number one seeded Thunder, and they go through the Timberwolves, who's everybody's darling after they eliminated the Nuggets. Now, on the flip side, you have the Celtics, much easier road, right? Like the corpse of the Miami Heat, the Cavaliers, who got Jared Allen banged up, and then Donovan Mitchell, and then the Indiana Pacers, who seem to kind of luck their way in there. Not a great defensive team. Then Halliburton gets hurt mid-series, and they get swept. So two completely different opposite things here. How are you viewing that? Are you taking that into account when we look at the series overall?
No, but I never do. I don't necessarily like the old cliche, right? Like it's two different seasons, but like Dallas did beat multiple 50-win teams. But if you've been watching the NBA for a minute, you were like, okay, they're going to walk in there and smack the Clippers. Like that's what they do, right? As they get LA off the court. And then the Thunder are very young, and that would just kind of won with experience, and Luka is better in the playoffs, I think, than even now. It's like, oh yeah, you know, he's doing Luka stuff, and it's like, no, this is different. This is one of maybe 3 or 4 guys in history have had runs the way that he's having right now. So no, I'm not looking at like who they played to get here, and I also think there are a lot of people doing that, and I feel like maybe it's a little disingenuous to the Boston Celtics because they didn't always make it look as easy as they probably should have, but they were missing Kristaps Porzingis for the entire run here, right, throughout the playoffs, and that's going to be a big part of who they want on the court, and what they want to do in this series is going to kind of be a KP. He just gives them different, like it's a different thing with Kristaps Porzingis on the court, and we'll see, you know, how he looks in the NBA Finals here. But I'm not putting too much stock into how they looked. Like I don't care about how Boston defended Jared Allen. Like that doesn't really do me any good because Derek Lively is going to play much different, and you know, like there's nobody in the East that is Derek Jones Jr. And that's like a weird sentence, but like he plays kind of funky. It is a unique thing, and so matchups tell the story here and kind of write the narrative. And I just don't think either one of these teams have played somebody super similar to who they're about to see.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm looking at it too. And I know the whole thing is, well, Boston just, you know, to get the easiest path ever. I mean, everybody's getting hurt. It's like, guys, are we forgetting that their freaking third best player has been out this entire playoffs? Like, listen, you get breaks. That's what happens at sports. Like people get banged up. It just seems odd, you know, this just happened 3 times in a row for the Celtics. But, you know, that's the road we get here. And I love it. Like, well, they haven't taken care of business. You know, that's like the huge narrative going around on sports talk radio and TV and all this stuff. They freaking only lost 2 games. They just swept in the Eastern Conference Final. It's unbelievable. Like, yeah, they lost a game they probably shouldn't have against the Heat. Okay, we know the Heat do some weird voodoo stuff, and Spo just comes up with some crazy things in the playoffs. All right, you're going to drop one. They weren't focused. And, yeah, okay, they didn't quite take care of business against the Cavs. Donovan Mitchell out. They beat them in 5. Like, what are we doing here? And so that's crazy. And Tyson on the other side, Kawhi Leonard hurt for the Clippers. That's a big deal. Like nobody mentions that. And then on the Thunder, like that team, it was like the Grizzlies a few years ago when they were the 1 seed. They were not ready. Like they beat a 1 seed, right? And how many times have we seen 1 seeds in the NBA playoffs when they clearly played over their head go down? Like the Hawks in the LeBron era when it was Horford on that team, Jeff Teague, Pacers with George, Roy Hibbert. Like we've seen teams at the top be way too or play over their head and to get a higher seed than they should have theoretically. And then against the Wolves, I mean, you want to talk about an elite matchup? My God, Rudy Gobert couldn't bang down low. They couldn't score, and there was just nobody who could defend Kyrie and Luka. And so, yeah, it's they took advantage of their matchups. So did the Boston Celtics. So it's just a hilarious narrative.
So real fast on the Wolves, what do they do now?
Oh God!
Like, what do you do now?
I know they're not going to, but I think you got to try to trade Towns
for 2 years, right? It was like, well, this is never going to work. And then they beat the Nuggets, and it was like, well, everyone was saying they were built to beat the Nuggets.
Yeah.
Like, this is what's important. And it's like, yes, in the second round. Now you got to play somebody else who you weren't built to beat. Were they built to beat the Nuggets? Sure, because the Nuggets are the best team. They were built to try to win a title. And Rudy Gobert wins his 4th Defensive Player of the Year and just gets whatever, we've been maybe not the most politically correct to start the show, so I'll refrain. But he got pretty hard over and over and over again in that Dallas series. And I think that, that those are real holes and real things. It was a very fun season for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and it seems like a tight-knit group. Mike Conley's not going to be around forever, and that was a huge piece of what they did. Nas Reed is one of the best 6 men in the league, and I think that he is the best 6 man in the league, and he's going to be there for a while. But how long is he really going to be kind of happy in this role? And he doesn't seem like he's a god in Minnesota. So I'm not sitting here saying, oh, he's going to want out. But at a certain point, like how many times we got to watch Karl-Anthony Towns drive in the lane and throw up a layup for no reason, trying to fire the guys up when they're down 30? It's like, dude, you didn't have any of this emotion when they built the 30-point lead. And this is now the 9th year in a row that we're seeing this out of you. So just kind of as an aside, I wanted to get your thoughts on the T-Wolves there.
Yeah, I think you got to try to move Towns and get somebody who's more reliable. I mean, that's been the story about Karl-Anthony Towns. I think he's a soft big man. He calls himself the best big man shooter ever, like Dirk Nowitzki didn't exist. Meanwhile, he's besides that one game where they won, he finally hit threes. What do you do? And what has he done in the playoffs? So it's just one of those players, I think, that doesn't quite get it, and it's been in the league for a while. I mean, you got to utilize your size. You got to, when you have a mismatch. He just doesn't do it. It refuses to. And that's ultimately, I think, the problem with the Wolves. Like, you're not going to be able to move off Gobert. Now, I thought Rudy played, like, I know everybody was just roasting him, like, because it's like the fun thing to do. There were times that he played good, and nobody would be like, man, Rudy's playing good, because they just waited for the other shoe to drop, which sometimes it did when you're guarding Luka Doncic. But I think the movable piece is Towns. Like, you got to go try to get somebody who can fit with Cat on the wing, or with Anthony Edwards on the wing. That's not Karl-Anthony Towns.
I think so too. But that's another team that Dallas kind of like. So of all the teams, I think in the playoffs, normally when we get to this point, it's like, oh, these teams got exposed and they need to do X, Y, and Z this offseason. Like, what are the Thunder going to do? Realistically, they're going to get another year older, right? What are the Clippers going to do? Hemorrhage money and try to keep this thing going, And like, what are the Cavs going to do? Probably lose Donovan Mitchell, but that was going to happen whether they beat the Celtics or not. The Pacers are going to get another year older. I think that Minnesota is really the only team that you can look at through this entire playoff run and go, oh, man, they're going to look different next year. Because, I mean, the Nuggets won the freaking title a year ago. Like, this isn't a poorly run organization. They're not going to, not to kind of crap on the Bucks, but the number one example I can think of, I don't think they're going to Milwaukee Bucks themselves.
Oh, right. I mean, I don't think it's even crapping on the Bucks. I mean, it's a reality. They completely messed up their window. I mean, injuries hurt, but yeah, I mean, I think the Nuggets knew that. Listen, like, we kind of sacrificed our bench this season. It hurt us. We're going to fix that next year, and then that's going to be another team you have to contend with again because they ran out of gas. Let's be honest, or else we could be talking about something completely different here, where it's the Nuggets. If they get past the Wolves, I think that's a matchup that Dallas can't handle. And then we're talking about Celtics Nuggets, which everybody expected, but that's not the reality. What we have is the best team in the NBA all season, the Celtics, taking on the upstart Dallas Mavericks, who outside of, I mean, we saw the Wolves play 2 good series. The Mavericks have played consistent the entire playoffs long, and I think they got rewarded for that. And it's been great to see because Luka Doncic is on that collision course for taking the mantle as the best player in the NBA, along with Nikola Jokic and try to take it from him. He hasn't won an MVP yet. Maybe that's coming soon, but that's how we got here. But Tyson, the biggest thing I think, and you and I both think, in this series is going to be Kristaps Porzingis and the health that he has. Because you kind of alluded to it a little bit, and I want us to go deeper on Kristaps. If he's available, I think it's really hard for the Mavs to beat the Celtics. Now, if he's out, the matchups, like you're going to put out Al Horford to try to guard these pick and rolls, or you're going to put out the big guy they have off the bench. I'm drawing a blank on him now. It'll come to me, but the big white guy on the bench, the Euro, who just completely lost when he first was thrown in there in pick and roll action. That's tough. I mean, we just saw it happen to Rudy Gobert. That's a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year award guy, not the corpse of Al Horford, and not Luke Cornett. That's who it is, and not Luke Cornett, who just is on skates basically whenever he's on the perimeter. If Porzingis is healthy and available, it just presents their defense an immense amount of options that they can do to defend. And on the other side, they can stretch the floor. Like you can pull Gafford away. You can pull Derek Lively away at times. Like that's the biggest thing for me here.
Yeah, he's the most important piece in this whole series. And I think like 85% of Kristaps Porzingis is probably all that Boston need, knock on wood, we don't know, but that kind of feels like that's probably all they need to gain like a severe or a marked upper hand in this series here. I think that kind of the thing that's been funny with KP over this whole thing is it's like, so he was the unicorn coming in, and then everyone decided they hated him, and then it flipped, and it was like, this is the best player in the world, and then it was like, oh, no, it's not. This guy sucks again. Is anybody watching the games? Like, he's been really good the whole time, and what he does for this Boston team is really good. We sat here, 7, 8, 9 months ago now, when kind of the news was announced, and it was like, oh, this is going to be a different thing that people are going to have to deal with. What he can bring to this Boston Celtics team is something that they don't have right now. It's like something that Al Horford can kind of bring once every 35th game throughout the season at this stage in his career. Kristaps Porzingis is elite at protecting the rim. He's elite at knowing where to be. And I think that's a really big kind of important thing, because you cannot play drop coverage against the Dallas Mavericks. We know this in the pick and roll, because when Luka's on flamethrower mode, it's just going up and it's going in. And Kyrie is the same way. And so if you can't play drop, you got to come out. What does that mean? Well, that means that two of the most electric, finishers on these alley-oops that Dallas has, and Lively, basically the whole team, right? Like, it's not just the bigs that can catch these lobs. They got a bunch of guys. But if KP is the one controlling and roaming the paint down there, it makes those things a lot harder to get done. How many times in the Dallas-Minnesota series did it just kind of look like maybe Luka was throwing the ball away? Oh, somebody's 11 feet in the air right now grabbing that thing and stuffing it home. If Kristaps Porzingis is on the court, it's a lot harder to get those looks than it is if it's Al Horford all night.
Yeah, and you can also allow Tatum to kind of play that rover role too, which he does so well, like on the backside.
When KP's not on the court either. He's just out there. He's free safety.
That's true. He's the ultimate Troy Polamalu, Ed Reed. It'll be interesting to see how many minutes he plays. Because let's put it this way, and then we'll get into the preview itself. We're going to assume that Porzingis is healthy and going to be available. That could change, but there's been no indication to suggest that's not going to be the case. How many minutes he plays a night is going to be very interesting to see. Like, do they ease him into this? Because Tyson, I'm of the belief that they saw how they matched up after they stole game 1 against the Pacers. And you're like, okay, well, after that, there's like no way we're losing this, because that was their one shot to beat us. Now, they had to have some comebacks and a buzzer beater, but they weren't going to lose very often to the Pacers. Like, probably, 98% of the time the Celtics won that, especially after Halliburton got hurt. I mean, it was just kind of a formality in many people's minds. I think they, especially them, sat there and was like, all right, we can rush Porzingis back, but we're probably going to win this. We're going to have more time off. Like, why would we throw him out there? There's a chance that he's more healthy than people think coming into this because of that.
That's where I'm at too, and I think that we're going to hear a lot about minute count and the pitch count, the famous. It's the stupidest thing in the world. I hate when other sports say pitch count, because it's like that's not how it works at all. He's playing an amount of minutes, so I think that we're going to see more KP minutes probably in game 1 than maybe we're going to be led to believe. Right? I think we'll probably hear they want to play him, between 16 and 18 minutes. And then the game's going to be close in the third quarter. And do you think Jason Kidd is pulling him off, or not Jason Kidd? I'm sorry. Do you think that The Departed is pulling him off the court? Like, there's no way. Or The Town. Was that the movie that he liked so much?
Yeah.
Sorry, I just recently watched The Departed. That's probably why I'm being so
one of those Boston movies,
politically incorrect, right?
Yeah, true.
Firefighter. But I think that he's not pulling him off the court in a close game in the NBA Finals, right? Like, Joe Mazzulla's not going to do that. It doesn't matter what sport you're playing; your best players play when it's time to win. And I think that a little kind of sliding under the radar thing here is it's Kyrie in Boston. It's Kyrie in Boston. Well, it's KP in Dallas too.
Right.
He's going to want to come back here and say, remember how you guys did me? Like, remember how this went for you? Because I was the first one that you came to get to pair with Luka, and I didn't even get, 30 games? Like, I couldn't get another look to extend my contract. You sent me out of here. I'm going to get this ring. And look, man, there are some freaks in the NBA. But when this dude is rolling, he is one of one. And they call him the unicorn for a reason. He's a little different, I think, than people are giving him credit for.
Yeah, I mean, he can step back and hit like Steph Curry range threes, and he's throwing windmill dunks like over people. Like, I mean, how it's changed. I mean, when he first came out with the Knicks, I mean, my God, the stuff he was doing, it was insane. And he's getting banged up. And what did we say from the beginning too? And we'll go into our actual preview. If Kristaps Porzingis, all the Celtics need Porzingis for is the finals. Well, here he is, and if he can stay on the floor, we're going to get the Celtics that we saw for a lot of the regular season, and that was one of the best regular seasons we've seen in the NBA. So let's get into the court stuff. Tyson, I want to throw this out there and kind of tee this up, and then before I get in some four factors advanced stats, just for food for thought, but it's really unprecedented that Dallas is even here. In the history of the NBA, only one fifth seed has ever made the finals. That team lost. Only four other teams rated with the fifth seed or worse, 6th, 7th, 8th, have made the finals. Only one has won it. That was the 6th seed, and that was a Bill Russell 6th seed. Everybody else has lost. So they are 1 for 4. Right. So they're 1 for 4 teams, 5th seed or worse. Now, in the history, 1 seeds win this thing. They're 51-38. That's the best winning percentage. Number 2 over the second seed, 16-23. Third seeds have the second best winning percentage at 8-8. I guess the 6th seed are 1-1, but let's throw out the Russell thing. So it's unprecedented, really, that Dallas is even here. Now, I want to view this in a different way. I want to throw this back to you. We're basketball historians. We've watched a ton growing up. For the ones that we haven't, we've kind of followed the storylines, and really, taken a peek at behind the curtain of how it got there. This would be unprecedented for a team as good as the Celtics have been throughout this stretch with the Jays to not win an NBA championship. Now, are they just regular season good? We've seen that before. Are they, do they come up small in the NBA Finals when it matters the most? We've seen them lose in the Eastern Conference Finals a ton. Like, I can't believe this is only the second NBA Finals this group's been to based on the success they've had. But going back to the history of the NBA and just how we look at it as a grand picture, great teams in the past who have gone to these conference finals, put on these stretches of dominant performances, for a team like that not to win would be like unprecedented in the NBA. So that's kind of how I'm viewing that. And that's how I'm entering this series with that in my head. I don't know if your thoughts on that, if you thought about that, or what you think of what I just said.
Well, I haven't necessarily thought about that, but that is something that's been kicking around my mind for the last couple of days. Is like, if they don't get this done, like, I don't, because initially I was like, feels like the 7-second or less Suns with Steve Nash. Like, they never won, but everyone loves them, and you remember the teams, right? And then I started thinking, well, these guys have made the finals, and then they made the finals again, and they've had more playoff success. And yeah, you can tell me it's a weaker conference and all of that stuff. I understand that. Go look back at pace in the early 2000s and some of the shooting percentages. Like, guys today are just like, shot making is at a higher level. I think what Boston's able to do and kind of weather storms, and it's been essentially the same build or the same construction, and they've swapped out some pieces here for upgrades there, or to add more spacing or to get bigger, but it's been kind of micro adjustments, right, on a smaller level. But like, one of the other things with this Boston team that I kind of had forgotten about is like the whole Udoka thing. right? Like the whole Brad Stevens thing, like all of this stuff is only the whole Danny Ainge thing. Like this is all only a couple years old. And sometimes we forget, these guys are 25, 26 years old. This is a lot to kind of take in these moments. But I do think that as far as like NBA championship caliber teams that haven't been able to hang a banner, they got to be the best that I've seen personally to this point, because how many times are we going to have to watch the regular season and watch them rack up 60 wins and dominate on defense and be one of the better offenses in the league to get to the playoffs and have Jimmy Butler on the 7 seed Heat, right? Just like crap on him or whatever it is. And yeah, the Mavs might be unprecedented as a 5th seed. I don't know how many 5th seeds in the history of the NBA had this much talent on their team. And that's a big thing. And Jason Kidd gets a lot of hate, dude. He's one of the smartest actual basketball players of all time, and he's watching it from the sidelines. He's made some awesome adjustments. Like we just spent, 40 minutes a couple weeks ago talking about how Minnesota probably just, I don't want to say pants, but they outcoached the Denver Nuggets, right? Like Michael Malone, for the first time over the course of a series, didn't have answers to every question on the test. And then Minnesota walks in to play Dallas, and it's like, oh no, these were in the back of the book, brother. Like all the evens are just, you got to go to the very end. That's kind of how it felt like the Mavs. So yes, it might be unprecedented for them. Everything Dallas does is unprecedented. Like Dirk Ring is unprecedented. The whole organization, like this is not a cookie cutter organization. So it would make sense to me that if there was going to be a 5 seed to win, it would be the Dallas Mavericks. And also, no 5 seed ever winning feels very weird.
Yeah, it does. That's a good point. Now, as the actual stuff here, now I'll throw this out there because you mentioned the Boston's offense, Boston's defense. Now, they're number 1 in adjusted offensive ratings. This is from dunks and threes over the course of the regular season. Now, we know things change in the playoffs, but just giving you an idea of how these teams performed over the 82-game stretch when Boston won 64, Dallas won 50. Now, they were number 1 in adjusted net rating, the Celtics were. It's because they had a number 1 in adjusted offense, number 2 in adjusted defense. Dallas on their side, they're 14th adjusted net. That's good, right? Like they're a good team. 7th in adjusted offensive rating, 18th in adjusted defense. Now their defense has improved since they've gotten to the playoff. That's something that Jason Kidd noted, and that's not taking into account how they changed up their identity after the trade deadline when they got Gafford, when they got PJ Washington, and Lively started to play more. So keep that in mind. But here's what's also interesting to me, Tyson. I'm looking at these 4 factors. So the turnover percentage on offense for Boston is second best, only 11.5%. Dallas is 6th best, only 12%. Good. Defensive 4 factors. Boston only turns over their opponents at 11.5% rate. That's 29th in the NBA. And Dallas, 12.9% rate. That's 19th in the NBA. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of turnovers this one. I think we're going to see a lot of sets. I think we're going to see it's going to be a make or miss series. Effective field goal percentage during the regular season. Boston 2nd, Dallas 7th. On defense, Boston effective field goal percentage against them 2nd, 52.3%. Dallas 54.8%. That's 17th. So edge seemingly to the Celtics, right? They can hit their spots, they can hit their shots. Dallas is going to have a hard time guarding that. We'll see if that happens in the playoffs. So far, Dallas has been able to step up on defense. Celtics, on the other hand, listen, you're playing the Pacers. They were the best offense and one of the best offenses in the NBA, and they scored a lot of points on them. Is there a vulnerability there? I'm curious to see what happens in this series when you have the mismatches of Luka and you have Kyrie Irving being able to switch off and go attack in one-on-one fashion.
It kind of feels to me like, all those numbers are the numbers, and the numbers are facts. So, opinions don't have much place in these, but I will say that it kind of feels like Dallas hasn't necessarily faced a team with a true counterpunch yet in the playoffs. Like, I think that taking away Anthony Edwards was essentially the key to winning the series against Minnesota. They did that effectively, and they won the series against Minnesota. Making sure that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is kind of the only guy that's hurting you when you're playing the Oklahoma City Thunder means you're going to beat the Thunder. That's what they did, and they won. And then with the Clippers, it's like they've had the blueprint for how to beat this team seemingly since COVID, right? Like we've known Luka gives these guys problems, and so yes, their defense is much improved, but like what would their numbers look like if they played somebody like the Pacers who just want to run up and down the floor and shoot threes. I don't know necessarily how much you can really look at Boston and go, well, the defense is way worse because, again, they're missing the guy, the guy that kind of not the engine, right? But one of the pieces of the engine. He's the Pistons. He's the one who helps make the car go. I think that of all those stats that you said, the only one that really matters to me is that they both made the playoffs kind of look like a breeze. Like that's more important to me than any advanced metric, because we've seen in the past Dallas do something similar, like what they just did to Minnesota. We haven't seen it to get to the finals, right? We haven't seen them beat somebody by 40 to get to the finals. When they beat the Suns by 50, it was to go to the Western Conference Finals. When they beat, the Clippers in the playoffs by 25 in closeout games, it's to go to the second round. This was the first one where it was like, oh, blood in the water, and they're here to play. And I think that is kind of the real vulnerability here for Boston. More so than it is Dallas. Is I don't think that this is a Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving led team that is here to mess around for a single second, where Boston can kind of get themselves into, we only sometimes we only got to show up for 24 minutes. Like, I don't really care about what happens in the first half because it's awesome to watch Boston go on a 20-0 run. What happens though? The games get closer. When Dallas goes on a 20-0 run, you better buckle up because you might lose by 40.
Yeah, they can blow you out, or they can come back from that in a heartbeat. Like we saw that too. I mean, the Timberwolves were leading late in 4 of the games, and the Mavs won 3 of them. That's what it is. So, anything else you want to say before we get into the money making time on this series? We'll kind of go through who we think is going to win and that, because that's a lot of what we're doing. But any closing thoughts?
I just think one of the things that is funny to me is we finally got something new in the NBA, right? It's like, oh, we got something new. It's like, brother, I've been watching Boston play in these games for 5 years. Like, this is half new. This doesn't count.
Yeah, didn't we just get something new last year with the Nuggets and Heat too?
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, let's get to the offseason and talk about the Lakers. Enough of the actual basketball.
They're still talking about it right now, and the Knicks. I think the ESPN's still doing a segment on them.
Good. Well,
all right, let's get into
drafted soon.
You're right. All right, so money making time right now. What Tyson are going to do? We're going to start with the series long prices. Anything that we want to take from a series long angle. And then we're going to move into our game 1 picks, game 1 action. And I got a bonus pick at the end here that's going to incorporate the other final that is taking place on the sports world. So let's get into the series long stuff. Tyson, I'll start here. I'm going to take Celtics minus 1.5 games at plus 106 on FanDuel. I think Boston can win in 6. I think Boston can win in 5. I would be shocked if they swept them. But we can't rule out the possibility that maybe somebody gets banged up. I mean, we were talking about it earlier, but in a little tongue-in-cheek fashion, I'm saying it now as well. That's what's been happening for Boston. I mean, could it happen again? Who knows? Like, Luka was gimpy coming into the playoffs. Clearly wasn't himself early. What happens if somebody rolls an ankle? Kyrie Irving, maybe he gets hurt. I don't know. But that's always a possibility. But I think the Celtics taking them in 6, 5, or 4, that seems to be a possibility here, or a probable outcome. And you're getting that plus money. I love it. Minus 1.5 games for the Celtics series long for me.
I'll do what you did, but I'm going to put my nuts on the table a little bit. Boston 4-2 plus 470. I think the Celtics win this in 6 games. I thought the same thing was going to happen to Dallas last series. I was dead wrong, and I was very glad to be dead wrong. It was a fun series to watch, and when these guys are rolling, it's hard to be too mad. It's hard to say you're going to KMS when Luka is pulling from the logo. Like, it's a good time for everybody. But I think that Boston just has too much, and maybe that's going to hurt them. Maybe it's going to be harder for them to go 7 deep in one of these closeout games, where Dallas can just look around and go, yeah, we're fine with these 7 or these 8. So maybe, depth sometimes can become an issue in these sorts of things. If you think back to the 2021 finals, it was like, 3 guys versus 11, and the 3 guys ended up winning. I think that Boston also has the 3 guys, and that's kind of the difference here. I'm going Boston in 6.
Okay, I love it. Any other series long? Like, I want to go through a couple markets here. I don't have anything official. I'll give out a couple leans I like, but anything else in the series long market you're going through?
One that I like here is Kyrie Irving points per game in the NBA Finals over 23.5. And a round ago going into the Western Conference Finals, I probably wouldn't have liked this bet at all. But I think Kyrie Irving showed up and showed out, and he was shooting. I think that's the phrase you gave me is Kai is shooting out here, and he was hooking that thing up. He's not afraid of the moment. We know that. And I look, who's guarding him? Because let's get really honest for a second. Jaylen Brown's an awesome player, and he's a great defender. Nobody in the NBA can guard Kyrie Irving when Kyrie Irving has it going. And I think that if I know anything about Kyrie Irving, he's going to have it going in this NBA Finals.
Derek White, I think, would be.
He's getting cooked. He's getting sent off him. They got to switch something up, man, because you're going to have to attack and trap off the pick and roll and hope that KP can clean up things down below, because there's nothing anybody can do with him, man. I mean, he just made Anthony Edwards look like the kid's never played defense in his life.
I'm looking at Luka over 30.5. That seems way too much to me. Like holy smokes, that is a lot. And you can get minus 106 on the other side going under.
Well, the same thing with Jason Tatum is like, would you be surprised if there's a game in the series where Tatum has 13 points and that's the reason you don't hit your 26.5 number? No, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has 40 the whole time either. I just have a strong conviction that Kyrie Irving ends every game in the series with like 24.
Yeah, that's what you're looking for on the average too, Tyson. I love it. I want to go through a couple of these here. So that's the last one I have. I'm looking at the top point scorer market, minus 180 for Luka. I don't want to lay that. Like you said, Jason Tatum can go berserk. I think it's going to be a tough matchup on the wing. Total threes, Doncic plus 110, probably. Like he takes the most volume. Total assists, Doncic minus 650. I don't know. I'm staying away from that, but. Tyson, this is the one I like. Tatum, most rebounds in the series, minus 120. And I know people are scared with the fact that Porzingis is coming back, but I don't think we just don't really know the minutes there. And plus, when he's on the floor, Tatum still gets rebounds if you look at it. Like, he's still getting his number. Doncic's at plus 165. I think, sure, that's a look if you want to go away from Tatum at the minus 120 number. But Lively and Gafford, I think, are going to vulture each other. Like, I think it's 6-7 for him per game. Whereas Tatum can get the 8 he normally gets and maybe go for 12, 14, depending if it's a bad shooting night, one of these nights. Doncic, I think, can get 8, get 6, get 5. But if Lively and Gafford are going to be able to kind of take away from what he does, to me, this just screams Tatum, and you're getting that minus 120.
That means it's going to be a Drew Holiday series, one of those classic 4-game stretches where he averages 11 boards. Yeah, those are all scary. I think that if I'm going on a player to lead in rebounds, I think it has to be Boston. Dallas is so big; it doesn't really matter who the ball comes down in the hands of, because the ball immediately goes to one of the two playmakers. And Boston is a little bit similar in that way, but like, dude, I mean. Jason Tatum is an elite rebounder. Like he's a better rebounder than Michael Porter Jr. And I know that sounds super obscure to other people listening to this right now. That's Brad and I's favorite rebounder in the NBA.
That's funny.
So I think Jason Tatum could do it.
Okay, let's get into game one now. Very interesting. Minus 6.5, Celtics are laying. Minus 245 on the money line. Over is at 214 here on FanDuel. I'm going to lay it with the Celtics at 6.5 minus 106 here on FanDuel. Boston has played well early in the series. They've had time off. Porzingis has been able to come back. I think, like Tyson and I both think, he's going to be a bigger factor than people are expecting in game one. The biggest question mark is what his health is. I think people are looking at this as, oh, he might not be healthy. I'm looking at this as I think they rested him. I think he's going to be ready to go. I mean, he's had time off. I mean, this is a calf injury, avoided the Achilles. It's a pulled calf. He's been sitting on the sideline rehabbing since this thing started. What was that, early May? Like, I don't even know when the playoffs started.
2 years ago.
Right? That's what it feels like. I mean, I think he's going to be ready to go. I think the Celtics are going to try to throw a haymaker early. We know Dallas can kind of ease into the series a little bit. And that's what I'm banking on here at home. I'm taking Dallas minus 6.5 in game one.
I'm going with the under 214. And if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that's one of my favorite bets in sports is the unders in the first couple games of the NBA Finals. Things get real tight, and often we look up, it's halfway through the fourth quarter and it's like 89-87 or whatever. And it's like, what the hell happened to the NBA that I love? What did you guys do? Like the hoop gets smaller, the moment gets bigger, and all these guys have been here before, sure, but like we've seen with the best players in the world, that the NBA Finals is a different thing. I think the lights in Game 1, they're not going to be too bright for any of these guys, but I do think that are both teams going to hit 110 points? I don't think so. And so to me that feels like under 214.
Little long shot that I'm looking to play. I'm going to sprinkle this one a little bit. I'm going to take Jason Tatum 5+ threes at plus 470. He has not shot the ball well in the playoffs. That does not mean he can't figure it out with this extended time off. Like, he's been shooting, he's been ready. It's going to be in his home gym, a place where he can erupt. I think this is going to be a tough matchup for the wings of the Mavericks. Tatum, my concern here is he's going to get to the rim at ease, but I think he loves to fall in love with the three. Like, if he hits a couple early on, I think we could see 8 to 10, 8 to 12 go up here for Tatum if that's what's required here. So I'm just going to take a shot. It's plus 470 on FanDuel, plus or 5 or more threes for Tatum in Game 1. That's a little long shot play for me.
Jason Tatum needs to go off in this NBA Finals because I can't listen to Zach Lowe tell me that he's the 6th best player in the NBA, as if that has any bearing on he's not good enough to win an NBA Finals because he's the 6th best player. Shut the hell up. Like, I don't care what your numbers spit out to you. Like, whatever. Like, how many times has the number 1 player in the NBA won the finals? Like, it's less than half. I can tell you that much right now. It's okay to be 6th best, and so I want Jason Tatum to kind of shut some of these guys up. Who cares? It just doesn't matter to me. Jaylen Brown, 3+ made threes, plus 155. My angle here is that he is going to shoot the ball. Why? Because, again, the lights are going to be bright. And what does Jaylen Brown like to do when the lights are bright? At least try to put on a show. And he's not going to stop whether he is 0 for 5, 0 for 10, 0 for 15, or he's making everything. The ball is going up. And this is a guy, I picked Boston to win the series. I think Boston is going to win the series. I like what Jaylen Brown has done to kind of ease people's anxieties about why he's the reason that Boston can't win this. Because if you didn't know any better and you watched the playoffs to this point, you'd go, oh, that's the best player on Boston. And he's going to try to show that. Like, this is what he does, right? Like, these are the moments that he wants the ball. Against Indiana, this is like, I'm shooting the last shot. And it happened a couple times. Jason Tatum standing there with his hands out. The ball is going up, and he's going to shoot threes. They're going to let him shoot threes because I think that's something you have to live with when you play this Boston Celtics team.
Those are the only 2 for me. You got another one in Game 1?
That is it for me as well.
All right. Here's my bonus. Jason Tatum win Finals MVP. The Florida Panthers to win the Stanley Cup. That parlayed together, that's plus 220. Now, the implied, or I guess just not even the implied, the odds here for Boston to win the NBA championship. Let me pull this back up because I'm on Game 1.
Or minus 225.
Minus 225. I think that if Boston wins this, they're going to give Jason Tatum the Finals MVP. Now, Jaylen Brown, he was hilarious. Oh, I never won the award. He won it in the Eastern Conference Finals. I never won awards. I think it's funny because it seems like that's been the case. Well, it's probably going to be the case in this one. I mean, Jaylen Brown's going to have to absolutely outplay Tatum like he did in the Eastern Conference Finals. And even still, Tyson, the vote was split.
Yeah.
It was split. Like, Tatum's going to rack up stats. He's going to dominate with rebounds. He's going to have assists, and he's going to have some games where, like, oh, my God, look at the output there. So I have Tatum winning this. I think the Boston Celtics are going to win the NBA championship. Tatum's going to get the award, so I get to juice that down. Now, here's my Florida Panthers thing. They're the best team in hockey. I know it's McDavid. I know it's Draisaitl for the Oilers. They have a stacked offense. Evander Kane, Zach Hyman. Like, they are good up front. Tyson, their defense. I've been saying this. I've been pleading with this. Why the hell do the Oilers not go and buy the best freaking goalie in the league? They're running Stuart Skinner out, and he's been much better. Like, we got to give him credit here. If you're the Oilers fan, he's not the reason why they've lost some of these games. Although there's been some moments where, like, oh my God, is this guy just going to get us out of the playoffs? So he stepped up. Dallas was just throwing shots on goal. It was insane in the elimination game. Stuart Skinner stepped up, but what the Florida Panthers had to face compared to who they're going to run into in Stuart Skinner. I mean, oh my goodness. Jeremy Swayman, Boston Bruins, just an elite goaltender, who they just came off of facing Igor Shesterkin from the Rangers, who's just incredible. Now they're going to go and face this sieve in comparison. This thing could just be barbecue chicken for the Florida Panthers. I think they're the best team. Their defense is awesome. They want to grind things out. They're not going to let the Oilers get out and run. I like the Florida Panthers to lift the cup. Jason Tatum to win. That's plus 220, and you get action on both the NBA and on the ice. How do we like it?
I like it. I'm sensing a trend here. You want the guy that's going to shoot the ball a million times, and you want the team that's going to send lasers at the net 400 times throughout the 3 periods. So Brad likes people who get shots up. Everybody.
That's the angle here. Let's see if it works out for me, because we know defense wins championships, but let's see if offense can win bets.
I think it does. I think that's one of the 10 commandments.
All right, that's it for me. You got a bonus one you giving out, or are you letting me walk off in the sunshine with that?
I'm letting you walk off in the sunshine with that. I don't have anything at the moment. It looks. I mean, look, man. If we're gonna do bonus bets, maybe I'll bet that the UFC 303 card is not going to happen with Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. But I don't know what book is going to offer that one.
Yeah, I thought he was already playing the blame game.
Well, that's so unlike him.
It really is. I was shocked when I saw it. Okay. Like, subscribe, and share the show. Follow us on socials if you'd like. X, Instagram, and TikTok. It's the same handle at ISWIS_pod. Normally, Tyson plugs the chalkboard that we do on anything betting related. We're in the process of switching things over to Discord. We think it's going to be just a better experience for college football and NFL Sundays. Like, we're just going to be able to get more interactive. So we're in the process of building that out right now. We'll put eventually when it's ready, the link in the YouTube bio. So if you're subscribed, you can be able to see that. If you're listening to podcast form, that'll also be in there as well in the upcoming weeks. So that's why you got to stay subscribed. Also, share the show. We appreciate any support that you guys give us. To regular listeners, you know who you are. We're trying to grow this thing, present a different type of sports talk like we talked about in the beginning when Caitlin Clark all of a sudden it turned into CNN. So that's what we're here to do. We hope you enjoy it so far. So share it with your friends, share it with an enemy. We'll be back talking college football. We're going to have a fun one, I think, on Thursday, where Tyson and I are doing a little prep, talking about the early stuff. So we'll do that, and then we'll be back after game 2 talking about the NBA Finals. So we'll talk to you later in the week, guys. Until then, peace.